Freedom of expression is often called the cornerstone of thriving democracies. If you can't speak your mind or criticize your leaders, your country is not a democracy. For that reason, politicians aren't exactly fans of freedom of expression, especially if the ones on the firing line are them. Now, I know a lot of political parties and leaders talk very passionately about your right to speech. But how many of them are willing to walk the talk? If you decide to speak up against the establishment today, will these champions of free speech stand up for you? I think we all know the answer to that. Our freedom of expression has become a matter of political convenience in this country. If your speech suits the party or the leader, they will support it. If not, they will shower you with bans and abuses. In the last 48 hours, we have seen 3 examples of this. 3 examples from 3 parts of India and 3 political parties. On paper, all 3 of them claim to be champions of democracy and champions of freedom of expression. But when their own leaders and policies were questioned, the champions turned into cowards. Let's start with the BJP and their new kryptonite, the BBC documentary on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The government has called it propaganda aimed at undermining the Supreme Court of India. But let's face it, we all know the real reason why it's been blocked on the internet. Because the documentary details Prime Minister Modi's role in the 2002 riots. If the documentary really is propaganda, and you have a problem with it, why not ban it completely? Why not declare this 2-part series illegal and penalize the people watching it? The government hasn't done that. Instead, they are trying to filter this documentary out of social media. They've invoked emergency powers to block it from Twitter and YouTube. So the fact is, this is not about India's sovereignty or the Supreme Court's authority being challenged. India is too great a country for a mere documentary to destabilize its sovereignty. This is about using state machinery and institutions to muzzle freedom of expression. Just look at what is happening in JNU or Jamia Millia Islamia. Students are being detained to stop them from screening a documentary. The riot police is being sent to campus to stop this screening. It's not banned, it's not illegal. So why are these students being detained? Why are riot cops prowling around our campuses? Congress leader Shashi Tharoor says the government is overreacting. He says India's sovereignty cannot be challenged by a simple documentary. Listen to what he had to say.
To my mind, both the arguments that are being made on the government side, first that it will affect India's sovereignty, and second that if it is screened it will affect national security, those are very, very strange things to say, because they give the impression not only that India is very thin-skinned, but also that India's sovereignty and national security are so weak and so fragile that they could be affected by a mere film.
Interestingly, even governors seem to have an opinion on the documentary. Kerala's Arif Muhammad Khan is saying that different points of views are welcome in this country, but the timing of this documentary is suspect. Why? Because he reasons India has just taken over the G20 presidency. This could be an attempt, well, to embarrass the leadership here.
Look, different point of views are most welcome, and democracy cannot work without that. But the timing, all these things will have to be taken into consideration. This is the time when India has assumed G20 presidency. Why this particular time has been chosen to bring out this scurrilous material?
It's not just Shashi Tharoor, by the way. Most Congress leaders, including Rahul Gandhi, consider themselves to be champions of freedom of expression. Just one condition, though. You can't deviate from the party line. If you do, you will be left high and dry by the party leadership. Just ask A.K. Antony's son, Anil Antony, who is now a former Congress leader. He decided to speak out against the BBC's documentary on Prime Minister Modi, and guess what he got in return? Condemnation and abuse by party workers. The top leadership just stood by and watched him being abused online. My simple question is, shouldn't Anil Antony also have freedom of expression? You can disagree with his views, but that doesn't mean you promote abuse campaigns against him. Because remember, a political party is not an army of robots. It's supposed to be a melting pot of different views and different policies. I spoke to Anil Antony about his high-profile exit from the Congress party. He too is talking about the hypocrisy of the Congress's top brass when it comes to freedom of expression. Listen in.
Like, end of the day, you say a lot of things, but like I said, like, this is just hypocrisy at its finest, where you stand for democracy, you stand for free speech, you stand for love, but end of the day, sadly, most of these people are just filled with heat and violent, like they stand for nothing which they actually say in public.
And our third example is the TMC. We've spoken about the BJP, we've spoken about the Congress party, now the TMC. Mamta Banerjee too calls herself a champion of free speech. But Jadavpur University professor Ambikesh Mahapatra will disagree. In April 2012, he was arrested by the police in South Kolkata. What was his mistake? Circulating a cartoon on Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee. That was his mistake. So for more than 10 years, the case has been hanging on him. More than 10 years later, Mr. Mahapatra has been acquitted by a court in Calcutta today. That's a decade of legal battles and stigma and expenses, all for circulating one cartoon. So much for being a free speech champion. Ambikesh Mahapatra says he's happy to be acquitted after 10 years, but he's also asking a very important question to Mamta Banerjee. Who will give him back those 10 years? The fact is, freedom of expression is not a right anymore in our country. It's a luxury given to you based on who or what you criticize. My guest this evening, Ambikesh Mahapatra, Professor Jadavpur University, joining us on the broadcast. Parvathy P. Is from JNU. She's from SFI. Gargi Nandi Roy, political analyst, will speak on behalf of the BJP. I beg your pardon. She's joining us in the studio. And Sanjay Hegde is a senior advocate from the Supreme Court. He's joining us on the broadcast as well. Professor Mahapatra, can I start with you first and ask you what it feels like after 10 years? After 10 years, you're finally free from that legal, political, financial pressure of having to answer every which way for a cartoon.
Yes, yes, this battle was very unequal battle for long time battle against the state power, state administration. So after the judgment from the final judgment from the district court of Alipur, I with my family friends are very much relieved, and also in our state of West Bengal, the common people who are democracy-loving people, they are also feel very much relieved with this judgment. But in our state, the democracy, the freedom of expression is attacked in many atmospheres by the ruling party with the help of police administration, muscle power, and money power. This is happening. So in our state, democracy is under stake by the state administration. Indeed, today, now also. So our people of West Bengal.
Professor Mahapatra, before I go to my other guests.
Yes.
Before I go to my other guests, can I ask you this? Have you become a little more careful about what you say in public life now? Is your family telling you, don't be outspoken, don't do things that will upset the political establishment in West Bengal, just play it safe, keep quiet, that's the best way to survive, and survive quietly and peacefully?
No, this is not the fact. Actually, the common people, my family men, all are under fear psychosis at that time. But when the many people across the world, across the nation, across our state raise their voice against this arrest, against this physically assaulted me. So after this, so we are raising our voice for democracy, for freedom of expression, for rights of common citizen enshrined by the Indian Constitution. This is also happening in West Bengal now.
Actually, it's happening all across the country. It's happening all across the country, across the political spectrum. Let me tell you that. Parvathy P will, attest to that. Yesterday at JNU Parvathy, you were to screen the film, the docu-series of BBC, which has been blocked by the government but not banned, and you had to pay a price for it.
Yes, I think similar to what Professor has mentioned, what happened yesterday in JNU was a clear violation of the freedom of expression, which is well guaranteed by Indian Constitution. So the student union has planned to screen the documentary in the campus for all the students of the campus on 24th evening, that is yesterday. And what we saw after that was a clear violation of what we call this. So basically the documentary is not banned. So as students and as citizens of the country, I believe we still have the right to watch it and to have a discussion on it. But what happened from the side of the administration and the right-wing students of the student organization of the campus was clearly a violation of human rights, I would say. So what happened is the documentary was supposed to be screened at 9 o'clock in the student union office, but the administration they had to cut the power supply to that area, including the hostels of that area, and jammed and blocked the internet connection so that the students won't watch the documentary. So what we should understand is this is a clear violation of human rights. It was not just affecting the students who were watching the documentary, but the whole of the students who were in the campus. There are visually impaired students, there are physically disabled students. So the administration didn't care to look upon their security. They didn't care to secure them. I mean, campus is a safe space for us. But then what happened is the administration facilitated, indeed helped the right-wing goons in the campus, called the right-wing organizations. They indeed helped them to attack the common students who were peacefully watching the documentary. When the power supply was cut and there was no internet, we had no other measures. We started watching documentary in our phones and laptops, which were arranged. Yeah.
But Parvathy, the government is saying, just to put out the government's point of view, the government, Parvathy, is saying that this is divisive propaganda, and this is directly challenging the Supreme Court's, the Supreme Court's ruling in the 2002 case. And if it's propaganda, why watch it?
What I believe, campuses are a place of debate and discussion. Whatever propaganda is it, it's not that first time a highly debated documentary or movie is getting screened in the campus, in JNU campus particularly. To mention, there was a clearly propaganda movie screened in the campus at least 1 week before this. There was no attacks, there were no violent moves by any section of the students in the campus. We are open to discussions and debates. I think that is what at the end democracy is. So it could be a propaganda, it could be not. It's not us. I mean, we have to watch it and understand it before we call it something like that. So the essence is we need space for discussions and debate, which is the core of the democracy that we all believe in. It's not that the documentary doesn't portray any religious community as a bad thing, or there is no things of religious divide or communal divisions. It was a movie, it was a documentary that we thought the students must watch and discuss on it. Yeah.
Gargi Nandi Roy, you're representing the BJP today on this panel. What gives anyone the right to stop the screening of a documentary on a campus? It's not banned.
It's not banned. Achha, let me say, Shreya, I do believe that she's a student that I believe in Tagore, that where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. But then we have to understand that, our constitution also gives freedom of speech with reasonable restrictions. And for me, when I hear the left talking about freedom of speech, they believe in a totalitarian regime and cancel culture. They are the ones who desecrated Vivekananda's statue. The JNU left wing, if you remember, they vandalized the internet server room of JNU because they called for the boycott of exams. And when students wanted to register for the exams, that was vandalized by the same student group. May not be the same student, but the same group. So when the left talks about freedom of speech, see, a freedom of speech, when you are criticizing your government, let her criticize. I have no issue. Let her criticize the government. But when a Western force, you know, those white media's burden, that Western media, they have taken self-acquired responsibility and they've created a false, illogical and motivated discourse about people and place which has no connection with their universe, or they are highly biased against. So it is understandable. They are obviously undermining the Indian judiciary, and they are trying.
How can a BBC documentary undermine India's mighty judiciary or its great sovereignty? Come on, it's giving it's giving the BBC documentary too much importance.
See what there's an attempt to create a perceived sense of victimhood among Muslims, which is not there. If you understand, see, of course the judiciary has given clean sheet and the people of the country have voted him again and again. So you undermine, let them criticize the government, I have no problem. But say also, I think, institutional rights have primacy over individuals' rights. An institution has a right. This is a government-run institution. Students are going there for studying. So why can't they follow something said by the institution? They have to always, and there are 100, 150 students, they have to go against every time the institution. They want to criticize the government, let them criticize. But BBC is nobody to give India or its
BBC is no one to give anyone any certificate.
And BBC, if you know, like Independent had exposed BBC that BBC had screened an 8-part series by FBC UK Media, and FBC Media has its all PR clients of countries and multinationals.
Not the point. The point. I understand, but this is not about the BBC. I'm asking you a simple question. When a documentary is not banned in this country, how can an administration and a government insist that it not be screened on campus? That is all I'm asking you. As a citizen, only government's dadagiri will prevail. As a citizen, I don't have a right. As a citizen, this young lady, Parvathy, doesn't have a right to watch the series.
See, she can watch it at home. See, I'll tell you, suppose in this Times Now Mirror Now studio.
What is the problem with watching it in the campus?
See, I think an institution is following some rules and it's a government institution. They are funded by government. They stay in the hostels. They get every facility from that government. And it is kind of creating an anarchy. Suppose in a Mirror Now studio, there is an authority, some rule that no, you cannot do this. You cannot wear this costume. There's some code. So if you wish to do that, you have to do it outside the studio, Shreya. Can you do it inside? Because there is some authority. We all have to follow. So an institution has its rights. So if the institution says, if they want to let them watch outside, the institution would not have stopped them. Why, when an institution is saying, and coming to Congress party, they had banned Salman Rushdie's book. And the left, we know what the left believes in.
Look, the fact is that all, my former boss used to say, Hamam mein sab nange hain. It's all political parties who have a problem with criticism. We know that. They have a great problem with criticism. My simple point is...
Nehru brought that clause, freedom of speech with reasonable restrictions. Who brought that? Nehruji. So that, why was it brought by the Congress?
We want to respond to what Gargi is saying.
Institutional rights have a primacy. You cannot always fight against an institution. You vandalize internet server room when you give call for a boycott of exams. Why don't you allow others to give exams? When they are wanting, you people vandalize. You people, how they geared the dean of the campus.
I remember that, yeah.
Kept them whole night.
Okay, let Parvathy respond. Let Parvathy respond. Parvathy, essentially, the argument Gargi is making is this, that institutional rights are above individual rights. You have a right to watch the film, all right, the documentary, all right, but the institution has a right to say what it, to maintain discipline, to say that there could be a law and order problem, and therefore the screening will not be allowed. And as students of that university, you have to listen to it. You cannot say, this is violating my human rights and my freedom of expression. Respond to what she's saying.
Yeah. So the whole idea of JNU, I believe, and what I have understood in my constant engagements with the university, is the idea of debate culture or the culture of discussions. So basically, of course, the documentary is not banned. and then we have the right, like as students or citizens, we have the right to watch it. And what the administration did not allow or did not give permission to the screening of the documentary, that can be understandable. But then Students' Union is an elected body that can raise the issues and that can stand up for the students of the community. So when institution is coming with a regressive measure or a regressive idea of not to screen a movie, not to screen a basic documentary that is not banned in the country, then Student Union might take a step that is progressive indeed. So that is what we have done from the Student Union. But what happened is the administration, like they went on to that extent that they cut the power supply. And where was the security of the students? And I guess the other panelist was mentioning the administration and the students go there for studying, right? Students go for the studying. Yes, we are going there for studying, but then we need our security. We need our rights to be secured within the campus. So you mentioned we are getting hostels for free. Our fees are very low. Yes, it's a public funded university, but then our security is also important, right? So what they did last night is they clubbed with the right-wing student organization. They clubbed with the right-wing goons and attacked us. So where is our safety? Could be institutional rights, could be above individual rights, but where is our safety? Yeah.
Okay. Can I get in Sanjay Hegde here? Sanjay Hegde, as a senior advocate of the Supreme Court, have citizen rights become a pawn in power play? And I'm not just talking about the good professor who is here representing, representing his state, Calcutta. It's not just about this young student from JNU. It's also the fact that your stand-up comedians don't have shows anymore if they are slightly critical of the present dispensation. Citizens are penalized if they have a view that is contrary to the ruling establishment, whether in the center or in the states. Have citizen rights actually become a pawn in this power play that is going on across the country, not just in one state?
There is what is called the Sharansky test. If in a country you cannot in a public square stand and criticize the leader without fear of violence or arrest or any other consequences, then you're not living in a free country. Sharansky later on went on to become a minister in Israel. Now what strikes me here is that this was such a great opportunity for our great Prime Minister to say, look, I allow everything to be said against me. Because if the Prime Minister starts banning certain things that he does not like, then every other Chief Minister, every other regional satrap will go around the same way. Freedom of speech is not freedom for popular speech. It is only that which is unpopular which requires protection. So if any country is invested in free speech, it has to use all its might, including its state might, to defend the right of the person to say it. And then you answer that. In the marketplace of ideas, however abhorrent, should be given full flow. I think it was Voltaire who said, I disagree with everything that you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it. Here it's quite the reverse. I disagree with everything that you say, and I will not allow you to say it to the point of death also at some point.
Sanjay Hegde, why do you think it's dangerous?
Of course it is dangerous. There is a cost for speaking out. And you were asking the professor, are you more careful that way? The professor refuted it, but at the end of the day, people have wives, people have children, people have well-wishers who all say, why do you need to speak out? You will be marked up. There is a cost to everything. And you see, and if you want a truly independent country, you have to have people who can think freely. They may think on your side, they may think on another side. But if you start suppressing one school of thought, then equally the other school of thought will be equally liable to be suppressed. Freedom is indivisible. It is for everyone. And you can't be selective in these matters.
Gargi Nandi Roy, respond to what Sanjay Hegde is saying. He's making a valid point. The good professor here, Professor Mahapatra, and I'll ask him that question again, is saying no, it doesn't mean that I keep quiet or I hold my thoughts just because of a cartoon that I circulated. I've had to spend 10 years in pure hell. But fact is that people are much more careful in their utterances in public. They do feel that criticizing the ruling political dispensation, whether it is here in Delhi, whether it is in Hyderabad, whether it is in Kolkata, whether it is anywhere else, will come at a cost. Try and putting something that is even vaguely contrary to what the present government is thinking or saying, and you see the troll army that goes after you.
Okay. I think, it's not, I think every day you see such abuses against Modi ji. Everybody is criticizing him. Nobody is...
I'm not saying it's right to abuse the Prime Minister, just by the way. He's the Prime Minister of this country. No one has the right to abuse the Prime Minister. Who was abusing the Prime Minister here in this case?
Not in this case, but there has been abuse.
Okay, I'll come to you. You disagree, I'll come to you. Just let her complete her point.
So it's not that any criticism is blocked. But I think in this particular case, because it is a foreign agency, an agency of a country, because of whose colonialism and imperialism, half the world was impoverished, and they are trying to validate. We don't need validation from BBC, and it is really a deliberate attempt. What is the agenda? Tell me what is
Forget the agenda. Forget the agenda. They may be colonial in their mindset. They may have a bias. All of that given, my limited point is, why stop anyone from watching the documentary? That is my limited question to you. And you have still not answered that question. You have given me some goalmole about, JNU and all.
There is a fault line. You are trying to make the fault line bigger. You are trying to create a misplaced
Misplaced victim. No, where? As a citizen, I have a right to see the film and decide for myself. I have a right to see the film and decide for myself.
An institution also, that's what I said. The institution thinks that can be an anarchy. There can be a situation of law and order. And when the left-wing student says that the JNU is a place of debate, we know JNU has been a place for one kind of narrative. Only now when the other side is coming, they are getting
that narrative because we are a democracy.
Because army people were beaten up because when army was criticized in JNU,
we are a democracy. And JNU is allowed to have its narrative. That's what a democracy is about.
JNU has seen only one
different ideology.
But only the other side comes now. This left is becoming very conscious. They stop people from giving exams. Why? If you want to give a boycott call, the other person has a right to listen to the boycott call or give exam. Why stop the other people? Why did they vandalize the
Sanjay ji, no.
narrative ran in JNU. Now the other side is coming.
Let it come. Let the other side also come. But don't stop anyone from speaking their mind. Don't stop anyone from watching a film. As a citizen, I have a right to do exactly what I want to do, as long as I'm not, I'm not creating a law and order problem. Sanjay ji, you told me you disagree.
May lead to anarchy also if there is no authority.
Watching a film will lead to watching a film. Okay, but watching a film will not impact the law and order in this country or its sovereignty. Sanjay ji, I said that I don't think that the Prime Minister's office or the Prime Minister himself should be personally abused, and you said I disagree. Why do you say that?
In a mature democracy, nobody is about criticism or even abuse. Please look at, now let's turn it around. Let's look at what the BBC says about the British Queen or the monarchy, or what ITV in Britain says about its prime ministers. Where I grew up watching something called Spitting Image, where everybody was mocked. You look at the US. Is the president of the US above criticism, above being lampooned? Please watch something called Saturday Night Live. In any mature democracy, the talk has to be, okay, let all ideas flow as long as you do not incite violence. However, we are a more hierarchical society. We think that there are holy cows, that there are things which cannot be talked about, there are things which are taboo. So and that's how we are brought up. Unfortunately, we have put fetters on our own speech and consequently on our own ability to evolve ideas. You cannot have a great country unless you have truly free minds and truly free speech. On a personal note, when a friend of mine was taking over as a Supreme Court judge, I told him that please take care of free speech and everything else will fall in place. He did give a few judgments which upheld free speech in its entirety.
Okay, then why you say they are protesting against the film this Godse and Gandhi? There are people who are threatening the Congress person who left Congress because he also said that we can have internal differences. Let's not a foreign power make a comment. You know, Mr. Antony had towards us. So
this is a foreign power, just by the way, with whom you have a fairly decent relationship.
yes, we have.
And
the UK Prime Minister
has defended you. Defended.
US people have.
So, again, this is not about foreign power. It is not about what the BBC is saying in that documentary. It's not even about whether I agree with that documentary or not. I've not seen it. I don't care watching it. I mean, I don't have 1 hour to spare to watch that BBC documentary because I know what I know about the 2002 riots. Plus, there is a Supreme Court judgment. So all of that is in the public domain. It's not about the content of the documentary. My simple point is every citizen has a right to see that documentary. You cannot be sending riot police to the campus. 8 minutes, sir. You cannot be sending riot police to the campus. You cannot be cutting off power in a campus to ensure that 10 students, 20 students, 100 students don't get together in their own form of dissent or whatever, democracy or freedom of expression, etc., to come and watch the film. You can't do that. You cannot do that because that's dangerous at multiple levels. Abhi bahut chota lag raha hai, but that's dangerous at multiple levels. As I said, many of us, most of us, are very careful about criticizing ruling dispensations in the public sphere. Many of us, I get a lot of advice. Don't be so outspoken. This could boomerang. And that advice is coming from a sense of concern, Gargi ji. So let's accept what is happening. Yes, Sanjay ji, I don't have too much time, but go ahead. You wanted to make a point.
Yeah, just a quick point on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court didn't say that 2002 did not happen. The Supreme Court did not say that so many people did not die. All that the Supreme Court said is that there is no material to criminally prosecute the Prime Minister. That is the essence of that judgment. And the Supreme Court can very well defend itself if there is any contempt or anything of that kind. It doesn't require unnecessary defenders. So please do not hide behind the Supreme Court on this point.
I'm going to end the debate, but I'm going to end it with the person I started it with, Professor Ambikesh Mahapatra. Give me a minute. Professor Ambikesh Mahapatra, I will ask you the question that I had asked you right at the beginning. After 10 years of pure torture and hell at the hands of the TMC and the legal process which ends up becoming, the process ends up becoming the punishment, would you say that probably next time you're circulating a cartoon character of a political figure, whether Mamata Banerjee or anyone else, you'll be careful, you'll probably not do it?
No, this is not a crime from my side to circulate the cartoon. Actually, finally, the district court gave us the judgment. Physical attack on me, arrest, days, and lingering the court procedure with some influences from the government of West Bengal, their public prosecutors and etc. This is not the any criminal offense done by me. So in near future, I will circulate this type of cartoon without any fear, because this is my fundamental right, the fundamental rights of citizen of India enshrined by the Indian Constitution. So that should be protected by me, by our fellow friends, and by our fellow citizens of India, because India is a very highly democratic country over the whole globe. No one can carve our fundamental rights of citizen. So in future, I will share this type of cartoon, because this sharing is not a any criminal offense by our Indian Constitution.
Absolutely. Sharing a cartoon is not a criminal offense. Satire is not a criminal offense. A stand-up comedy against a ruling dispensation is not, is not an offense. And watching a film is certainly not an offense. We leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us on this. Thank you very much. It was good to have all of you on the show, and it was good to hear all your views. Thank you very much, and good night to all of you, but not good night to our viewers, because we have a lot more lined up for you, so do stay with us.
Co-powered by Indian Oil. पहले